So PlayStation just wrapped up their State of Play, and we need to talk about this. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this was the best showcase in the world, because it wasn't. I'm not even going to tell you that this was a good showcase, because for the most part, I thought it actually leaned on the side of boring and unnecessary. But I will say, the finale ended things with a bang. We got a major announcement for a true PlayStation 5 exclusive, and 2025 for the PS5 already looks a lot more interesting after this showcase, thanks to this specific game. And you know what? Let's go start off with that game. Ghost of Yotai was announced for a mysterious 2025 release date. Now, there was no release window, so I'm kind of expecting this to be a late 2025 release. But for right now, the visuals are pretty much as expected. Ghost of Tsushima was already one of the best-looking games from last generation, and, I mean, to be quite honest with you all, I think it's still one of the best-looking PlayStation 5 games with its enhancements. And that's the thing, because Ghost of Yotai takes its graphics to the next level. This is already shaping up to be one of this generation's best-looking games. And that's because it's actually Sucker Punch's first game built from the ground up for the PlayStation 5. And even though they haven't talked about it, I imagine that this will take full advantage of the PlayStation 5 Pro, just considering this is a first-party PlayStation game. So if you're looking for any kind of an excuse to get the PS5 Pro, this might, and that's the key word here, but this might be one of the first true selling points if they ever actually decide to showcase some of the differences, which I thought they would elaborate a little bit more on that today. But once again, Sony completely and miserably failed in that regard. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But what I can say about Ghost of Yotai is that it's both exciting and also a little bit surprising at the same time. Now, on one side here, I think this game looks amazing from a visual standpoint, and I fully expect some improvements on the gameplay side of things. And that's where I think Ghost of Tsushima was really good, with its visuals and with its gameplay. But at the same time, this is not a direct sequel to Ghost of Tsushima like a lot of people wanted. Instead, it almost follows in the footsteps of Assassin's Creed, with a completely new protagonist and a new location to explore. So I'll just go and read what Sucker Punch said in their official announcement. They said, "We also wanted to continue to innovate, to create something fresh but familiar. We looked beyond Jin's story and the island of Tsushima and shifted our focus to the idea of the ghost instead. As Sucker Punch, we love origin stories, and we wanted to explore what it could mean to have a new hero wearing a ghost mask and uncovering a new legend. This led us to Ghost of Yotai, a new protagonist, a new story to unfold, and a new region of Japan to explore. While we aren't diving into story specifics yet today, we can reveal that Atsu's journey takes place in 1603, more than 300 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima." Okay, so this is not a direct sequel where we play as Jin again. We'll instead play as a new female-led protagonist, and I can understand where people might be disappointed about that. A lot of fans had an attachment to Jin's story specifically, and I think this is something that Sucker Punch should maybe address. If they want to turn this series into an anthology where every game focuses on a different protagonist, a different location, and a different time period, then hey, I think that's perfectly fine. But maybe give fans that do want more Jin a resolution on what to expect from his story going forward. If Ghost of Tsushima was simply a standalone story and that's all for Jin, then maybe go ahead and confirm that with fans, or instead they can tell them, you never know. We could potentially return to his story in the future, but for now, we want to explore this new idea. Right now, though, I think that's kind of the number one question that a lot of fans would like to know. Just what exactly is going on with Jin's story? And what I'll kind of say to that is that reading Sucker Punch's official statement, it does kind of give me the impression that they like the idea of an anthology series more, which, if that's true, that does leave the future of the now Ghost of series very open, with tons of possible stories to tell. So in that sense, that could potentially be very exciting if you just really like the series and if you just want a lot more stories from these type of games. But let me know what you all think about this situation. Would you have preferred a direct sequel to Jin's story, or do you like the idea of this being an anthology series with a completely new protagonist every single time. Also, how do you feel about it being a female lead in feudal Japan? That alone, I think, is going to be a major topic going forward. So let me know how you feel about that specific situation. But either which way, I think outside of the controversy, I do think for the time being, the gameplay itself looks very good. And because it is set for 2025, this already makes the immediate future for the PS5 a little bit brighter. Now, outside of Ghost of Yotai, this was a very tame state of play. I mean, there were a few announcements of interest, though, like Astrobot's new free DLC. It'll release this fall, which includes some new speedrunning levels and 10 new bots to rescue. I mean, I'll be all over that day one. Astrobot, I think, is an amazing game. And for that matter, one of my favorite games is actually Nier Automata. And to my surprise, it's getting a crossover DLC with Stellar Blade. I mean, for such a long time, Stellar Blade was mostly compared to Nier, and you can clearly see its inspiration in just its design alone. So this is an awesome mashup, though we still need to kind of see what all this crossover will actually encompass. Then another cool surprise for you PlayStation fans is that Palworld is finally available on the PlayStation 5, and yes, you heard that right, it's available on the PlayStation 5 today. So, I mean, this has been one of the most popular 2024 games, and PlayStation fans can finally join in on all the fun. I can also tell you firsthand that, yes, it is a pretty fun game. I don't think it's necessarily the best game this year, but it is a fun game, though I do think you should maybe understand, despite Nintendo suing them, Palworld plays nothing like Pokemon. It's actually more similar to survival games like Ark Survival Evolved, but maybe with some Pokemon elements thrown in. Now, Fantasian also got its release date. This is probably one of my most anticipated games, as I'm a big fan of Hironobu Sakaguchi's work. And if you don't know who he is, he's known as the father of Final Fantasy. And Fantasian very much is a modern, but also classic-style Final Fantasy game. It will now be out on December 5th, and after the showcase, they did in fact confirm there will be a physical release for both the Nintendo Switch and for PlayStation the same day. So that is a major, major bonus. Now, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 also got confirmed. It's actually leaked before the showcase, but this is a very welcome remaster in my opinion. These were groundbreaking PlayStation 1 games back in the day, and honestly, even though the visuals haven't been drastically changed, I think it looks fairly good and still holds up very well even all of these years later, which I'd say is a true testament to its art style. That just goes to show you how good it looked back on the original PlayStation 1. So if you want to revisit Soul Reaver, or if you're going to play it for the first time, it'll be out on December 10th, and I kind of hope this leads to maybe more to come in the future. Could we actually get a completely new Soul Reavers game if this one performs well enough? Crossing my fingers for that. Then on the opposite spectrum, I'm not entirely sure that this next remaster is quite as welcome, but yes, the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster was indeed confirmed. I still think this is just an absolutely ridiculous use of resources. It was already enhanced for the PlayStation 5 with a 60 frames per second update. But for whatever reason, I guess Sony just decided it still needs more. I call that milking your cash cow. But it will get another visual overhaul when it releases on October 31st. And, I mean, I guess if anything, the slightly good news here is that they're not going to ask for a full $60 this time. Instead, you can simply upgrade it by paying $10 if you already own the original. Now, if you don't own it, it will cost you $50. So, I don't know. I just think that this is a completely unnecessary upgrade, all things considered, and I would love to know what kind of statistics this game will actually yield. I mean, honestly, who was asking for a remaster of a game that already looks and performs good as is on the PlayStation 5? Again, a waste of resources. And this is where Sony kind of lost me with this showcase. I just don't understand what their strategy is with the PlayStation 5 Pro. Here they have this Horizon Zero Dawn remaster that nobody is asking for. And I thought maybe, if anything else, they could maybe use this game to showcase the differences between the PlayStation 5 Pro and the standard PlayStation 5. I mean, pre-orders for the PS5 Pro goes live in just 2 days from the making of this video. And we still don't even know the exact time when pre-orders will go live on September 26th. I mean, you would think that they would have at least given us that information, if anything else, or that after that just atrocious presentation that they pushed out earlier this month, that they would maybe want to hype this thing up a little bit more. But apparently not. Apparently, they're satisfied with that reaction, because all they did is that they showed us this small collage of games right at the end that will get PS5 Pro enhancements. But even with that, they still did not elaborate at all. We don't know what kind of enhancements they'll actually get. We know that Alan Wake 2 will get some kind of enhancement, but we don't have these specifics. It's just a big mystery, apparently. I mean, I don't know by this point. Sony's communication this generation has just been a flat-out embarrassment, and I think the PS5 Pro and how they've handled its launch, combined with its price tag, is just a lack of respect for their customers. I mean, I get it. This thing will sell out initially because most new game hardware does. And I think it might even turn out to be a pretty cool console in the long run. But its price, combined with just their lack of a meaningful presentation that shows us anything about this thing, I just think that all of this is ridiculous. Now, that's just my own personal opinion on the matter. Maybe you feel differently about all of this, but I just don't understand how they've now botched two different presentations for the PlayStation 5 Pro. So with that in mind, in summary, I'm going to give today's State of Play a C-, largely because of Ghost of Yotai. Despite maybe some of the questions that surrounds that game, I thought it was a really cool surprise announcement, and there were a few other highlights that I'm looking forward to. But at the same time, I feel like they've missed yet another opportunity to justify the PS5 Pro price tag, and there really wasn't a lot of super exciting announcements at this showcase other than, yes, Ghost of Yotai. Let me know what you all think about all this, though. What would your letter grade be? Let me know that in the comments below, but I think that's where I'm going to end this video. Definitely let me hear your thoughts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like this type of content, but until next time, peace out.